Football fans, gooners, welcome to the Man City post-game match review on the Positively Uncensored Arsenal podcast. I am your host, Shotta, and as usual, my colleague and friend Blackburn George is on the other side of the Atlantic. Good morning from the Caribbean to you, George. How you doing?
I'm fine, thanks.
Good. It's good to see you. Good to see you as usual. Good to get into this little thing that we do that seems to be more that I'm looking at our stats. It seems that perhaps we are too frank, maybe a little unconventional for our audience, but we try to give a perspective based on our experience hanging around Arsenal Football Club, to give a perspective, a different kind of perspective about the ups and downs of our great football club, Arsenal. But yesterday, George, it was a great up. A historic win against Manchester City. First time since 2015, first PL win. I recall Arsene Wenger beating them in the FA Cup in 2020 on our way to that title. 12 consecutive defeats, George, and I remember some heavy ones. But yesterday we beat them. We edged them, but we did, in my opinion, what was necessary to win the game. What was your first thoughts? What was not just your first thoughts, but your impressions of the game and of our victory?
Well, first of all, it was a historic win because we'd made it a historic bad run.
Yes.
Prior to that, we mustn't forget that we had the worst run of any team. I mean, when every other team's got a better record against them than us, we've contributed to that historic run.
Yes.
So the historic victory was because we've been historically bad. But anyway, it was a good victory. But once again, my opinions watching the game changed after the game.
That usually is, isn't it, George? That's usually.
Yeah, I mean, it's every week. Yeah. I'm watching the game thinking, this is dire stuff. We're not creating anything. We've got 4 centre-backs on the field, 2 defensive midfielders. We're not doing anything to create anything. I'm not enjoying this at all. But then, afterwards, you see the stats and you see that we created more than them.
Yes.
And they had the worst creative performance that they've had since Pep Guardiola went to Manchester City. We stopped them playing. And
George, I will bring up the stats as you speak. I mean, it's amazing to see them only have 4 shots versus about 12. And they've been doing far more clearances than us. Go ahead, George.
So, like I say, afterwards, when you look at it and think about it, you think, bloody hell, how well do we play there to contain that team, that treble-winning team that started off like a train, by the way, in the first 5 minutes. I thought, oh, Christ, here we go again, another 4 or 5-0. And everybody looked jittery. Goalkeeper was panicking. Midfield were misplacing balls. I thought, this is going to be a car crash. But gradually, they pulled themselves together, tightened up, and really never gave them a sniff after that. That first shot, that they got on target was in the first 2 or 3 minutes.
One shot on target.
So for 90 minutes, they did fuck all.
Yes.
And so the reality of what happened is vastly different to my reality watching the game, as is often the case. The stats will tell you that not only did we play an exceptional game to keep them some of our players also had exceptional games. And when you're watching it live, you're thinking, well, nobody's doing anything here. Nobody's having a good game. It turns out some of them were having a one-in-a-lifetime game. Saliba, unbelievable game. You look at his stats.
Yeah.
Never lost a duel. Didn't misplace passes. Winning tackles. Declan Rice, similar. Didn't miss any tackles. Made some outrageous interceptions. Stole the ball, I don't know how many times.
Correct.
Got the ball away, passed it, didn't panic. Jorginho, for all the criticism he gets for being a slow old man, changed the tempo of the game, controlled it, calmed everybody down when it looked like panic was setting in. And it was just, in the end, an unbelievably efficient performance by a properly well drilled and coached team. I've changed my mind from watching it to this moment now 100%, when I've thought about it. It's just that as you're watching it, you're thinking, oh, are we ever going to create a chance? Whereas I wasn't thinking, well, they're creating even less than us, so therefore that's good. Because let's not forget, they usually, with a bitch, they usually just slap us and laugh their way back up the M6 to Manchester with the 3 points in the back pocket. Well, they're not fucking laughing today, and they weren't laughing yesterday. Kyle Walker having to fucking try to have a fight with some 6 inch shorter fucking set piece coach because
I didn't know that.
His fucking head had gone. Our set piece coach went to shake his hand and he's pushing him away. He's squaring up to him, and it was a farce. Haaland getting involved.
Yes.
So
he was particularly ineffective. George. And I'm going to interrupt you there because during the game I was like, well, I'm going to focus a little bit on City. That was unusual for me because they were not creating chances for Haaland, and they were then, in my opinion, lumping balls up. In fact, in all the corners that they took, there were deep corners aimed at Haaland, which is completely unlike City. They didn't even take a short corner for create something from that. It was, I'm going to tell you, George, this was not a City-like performance.
No, it wasn't, but you can look at it two ways. It wasn't a City-like performance, maybe because they weren't at the best, or maybe because we stopped them playing well.
Talking about stopping,
they couldn't play through us. They tried to play through the middle, and it wasn't working. They didn't go wide. They brought the new guy on later on to try and go wide.
Which one? The little short
or something.
Short guy from South America.
No, the guy that was signed they only signed him late on in the summer from Lens, was it? From somewhere in France. Then White nutmegged him anyway.
Yes, but I think he's probably a French player. The short dark player. He's a white player.
Yeah.
Player. Yes.
Yeah.
They brought him on to stretch us, and we dealt with him very well.
No, he got no change. He got no change.
Yes.
No, and because nobody got any change.
Yes.
I mean, Pep Guardiola, sometimes I think he outthinks himself. He really does. What was he thinking playing bloody Bernardo Silva as a defensive midfield player?
I was going to come to that, George. First half, he was the one taking the ball off the goalkeeper. And I was like, what are you doing? But then I realized they didn't have Gundogan doing it like last year and Bernardo Silva further up the field or they would switch around. And I was like, I said to myself, you're not creating any chances for Erling Haaland because you don't have a creator behind him.
But that's not the case, you see, because they did. Because you'd have to say, he was playing the Rodri position.
Yes.
Now, obviously, he's not as good a defensive midfield player as Rodri. But you've got to say he's more creative and cleverer on the ball.
Yes.
So we cannot sort of say, oh, they had no creative. They had a creative midfield player playing at the base of the midfield. So it doesn't mean that they played bad. It means that even we played even better to stop a more creative player than Rodri creating anything. I mean, he got absolutely no change out of anybody. Declan Rice was just out of this world. Jorginho helping him, calming things down, never losing the ball. Okay, sometimes he seems to play the easy pass, but often that's what just exactly what's needed. Arteta did exactly the same thing when he was playing that position.
Exactly.
And,
you don't want to lose the ball, George. You don't want to lose the ball.
Certainly don't deepen your own territory, which he inevitably plays sort of our side of the halfway line.
Yes.
So I just thought it was a really good performance. But I can't understand Guardiola. Why not play Calvin Phillips? That's why they paid 50 million or whatever it was they paid for him as a backup for Rodri.
Yes.
And he's played about 12 minutes this year or something. And they
have too many players, George, and they're too clever.
Like I said, they're too clever for themselves.
Yes. I brought this. We haven't spoken about this, but while you were talking, and talking about how well some players, all players played. This isn't a good view. I highlighted our defenders and Jorginho, who's played defensive midfield, and their passing accuracy. That tell you how technically well they played. Exceeded 90%, including Declan Rice, which you mentioned, made the simple passes. So City got no change out of attacking us, either down the middle or down the flanks. Any comments on this little table here, George?
No, like I say, when you look at the stats, which I did after the game, they're exceptional. I mean, those figures against Manchester City, who press like fuck, by the way.
But yes, George, that's correct.
They are the original pressing team. To have those figures,
right?
Apart from Jesus, who he flatters to deceive. I said this the other week, didn't I?
Yes, somebody said somebody commented on the podcast that you were too harsh. Guys, by the way, this is a plug for more comments. Listen, George, smiley. I think it was your comment about Gabriel. Yes, go ahead, George.
Yeah, I said he looks better than he is, and I said today on Twitter, he flatters to deceive. It's. But that said, he had the same sort of passing numbers as Eddie, and Eddie had 100% the other week, and he was down to 62%. So maybe that was a case of us being so solid in defence and in the midfield that they were taking the chances to try and create, playing more attacking shots, shall we say, more adventurous balls once they got it, because the build-up had been so slow, and that might have been a tactic, because you would accept somebody who can get 100% pass completion in a match the other week to do better than get 62% this week, unless that was the tactics, that once they got the ball, they were free to do with it as they were. That said, Trossard had, I think, 100% passing.
Yes, I saw that. Trossard, we only had 13 touches, but George, I thought he flattered. I mean, he's started off brightly, but I didn't.
Well, he got an injury in about that.
Yeah, I know, but I wasn't. And I know, I understand. Perhaps he got injured. I wasn't impressed, but he did what he had to do.
Yeah, but you're not going to be impressed with forwards if they're not getting the ball.
Yes,
and they weren't getting the ball in good areas, but that wasn't the game plan, was it? The game plan was to be solid. And solid we were. That's the best defensive performance I've ever seen from Arsenal. In any shit, and in any year, in any even including the Invincibles and the famous back five, they didn't give the best team in the world a fucking sniff. The best team in the world. They didn't.
The only sniff they got, real sniff they got, apart from that early scare in the first half. The only sniff they got was when David Raya dwelt on that pass.
Yeah, that could have gone in as easily as it went into the side.
Darwin, what's his last name? Darwin, whatever his last name. Alvarez. Almost scored. You know, I thought he scored, George.
I thought it had gone in as well.
The picture saw the picture on my TV showed the back of the net rippling, and I was like, "Fuck."
Well, if he'd have got less of a block in, it would have gone in. He got too good a contact on it.
Yeah,
he made too good of a block. If he'd only got half a block on it, it would have been a goal. But anyway, it wasn't a goal. And in the end, I thought in the second half, Raya played very well.
Actually, I wanted you, but before you go on, George, I definitely wanted your comments on that. But there was I went on Twitter and I saw them playing a clip from Arteta, and Arteta was saying, that's exactly what I wanted him to play. He developed, he commanded the entire box, commanded the aerial balls, and you, George, take a lap of victory. I hardly hear anyone who said you made the point that David Raya is a far better goalkeeper in the air than Ramsdale. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, I thought, after his initial collywobbles, I thought the second half he played really well. His distribution was good. His handling was solid, and his passing was good enough. But he did have a few fucking hairy moments at the beginning, but
because he was pressed. Because Manchester, as you said, Manchester City is a terror when they press, and they came there with a plan to press him.
We weren't playing a Tony Pulis team, were we? Fucking hell.
Yeah, indeed. And I was scared. I was like, David. You have been in the league for at least a couple of years. You played.
Well, that's another thing. What you've got to give credit for, everybody. Every commentator, everybody on Twitter's going, kick it long. And he didn't.
No, exactly.
He persisted. And he did what he was brought to do, even though it put us through some horrible moments. But you watch him, and I was watching him and Edison, and they both do exactly the same
thing. That's what was my thought too.
They've got the ball at the feet. Mm-hmm. They walk it to the edge of their area.
Yes.
And then they tap it about in front of themselves for about 30 seconds or a minute, waiting for everybody to get into place.
Yes.
Attackers and defenders. And then all of a sudden, they make a decision and boom, the ball goes.
Yes.
And it's like, you think, I'm screaming about, get on with the fucking game, for Christ's sake, fucking standing there with the ball. What are you waiting for? They both do the same. So Guardiola and Arteta have them doing exactly the same thing. And if they're doing it, and we're all idiots, amateurs, going, kick it long. What the fuck? They're no more than us. That's why they got £8 million a year, or in Pep's case, £20 million a year, so that they're not shouting from the touchline, kick it long.
Yeah. But George, this is what almost every coach, in the top coaches in the Premier League. And it remind me of something, George, because why they take the time with the ball is to induce the opposition to come forward and to put themselves in a position. Now, do you remember when Arsene Wenger explained why he had the ball not kick long, just at the edge of the box to Arteta or whoever was playing? And he said, I have to fool the other team into attacking me. And these assholes, and I have to tell it as it is, they don't like us telling them. Well, like, Wenger doesn't know what he's saying. And what he did 8 years ago is exactly what these coaches are doing now. And I was like, these goalkeepers are fooling you to come forward and then somebody is free. Not a long. You know what? You know what I hate, George, and which is obvious now. A long kick and the other team gets it back and just puts pressure back on your ass. It is horrible. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, obviously, all the top all the top coaches in the world now are coaching that way for a reason.
Exactly.
For
Keep
a reason.
possession.
It's certainly not because they don't know that if you kick it long, it's better.
Yes.
Because it's clearly fucking not better.
Yes.
They
get in the second because go get that second ball. Go get that fucking asshole. Your chance to get the second ball is like.
I know. 50, I mean, there's nothing that annoys me more than the goalkeeper lumps it up the field and it goes straight to the opposition's keeper who picks it up and passes it out from the back, and all of a sudden you're in the shit. You know.
Yeah, because they build up an attack.
Don't forget, if you're kicking it long, you're all up the field.
Not only that, too, George.
The possibilities for a counter are endless because everybody's up the field. If they've got speedy wingers or speedy attackers against your lumbering, slower defenders on the halfway line, a long kick gives them the advantage. One fucking header back, one fucking kick back over the top, and you're in trouble, and you see it time and time again.
And the other thing which I should mention to George, which I noticed when I went to literally went to to matches. I can say matches now, right? Is that whenever there's going to be a long kick, it is so predictable. If your goalkeeper is going to make a long kick with his right foot and goes to the right of the box, everybody shades to the left. Almost all the both the defending team and the attacking team will be shading to the left for the opponent. I saw that yesterday as well. Because at one time Ray was shaping for, I don't know if it was when Liverpool was playing. Everybody shaded, and I'm like, you're setting, it's so predictable. And the game I saw with Crystal Palace fucking did the long kick like that, and Mustafi fucked it up on it. I think it went over his head, George. I can't forget that game. But it is so predictable what will happen to you if you fuck up the receipt of the ball, or if you miss it. If as Mustafi did, you duck underneath it. I don't know if you remember that incident.
Well, I don't remember that incident, but I do know that all these top coaches know a lot more about the game than I do.
Exactly.
And if they're saying that's the way to play to get the best results, then I'm not gonna argue with them.
Well, speaking about coaches, George, I know that some of our listeners and guys, I love you. Some of you are loyal to us, and I read your opinions, but I don't argue with you because getting into an argument is unnecessary. But some of our followers, and quite rightly, do criticize Arteta a lot, but especially after that Lens result. But he did a masterclass yesterday, George. That was my opinion. I think we need to give him credit.
Oh, absolutely. Like I say, it was an outstanding performance on a defensive level.
Yes.
On a controlling level. Again, you have to say, against a team that normally steamrollers everybody else, and won the treble last year. And people go, but De Bruyne wasn't playing. I heard it yesterday, all the commentators, it'll be different when De Bruyne comes back. For me, they're better off without that fucking spammer.
I know. Yeah.
They're just a top team. And we controlled the game in a way that I didn't think was possible.
I think they miss Rodri.
I didn't think any team in the world could contain Manchester City like we did yesterday.
That's a very strong statement, and I think we should bookmark that because that's significant. But I do think they miss a couple of weapons. I mean, Jack Grealish wasn't there, but we didn't have Saka either. So I guess but they didn't have Rodri, who
So he's the most important player.
The most important player. He's like the pilot. He's a midfield player and can drop back in defense. And he's He can score. But anyway, George, the thing that there's some dispute, but about the man of the match. So let's just talk about that for a minute. I who scored against Declan Rice? And I think Arsenal gave it to Martinelli. Can you see this?
I can see it, yeah.
Well, let me get rid of the banner for the benefit of the viewers. Hide, yes. Yeah. So, yeah. What's your thoughts? They give
I
Rice.
think it's absolute rubbish.
Tell us why.
Saliba,
Yes.
6.9.
Yes.
And White, 7.5. Saliba was man of the match by a fucking distance. And if you're going to argue who could have matched him for man of the match, it would be Declan Rice.
Right.
And I know actually they've given man of the match here, which I wouldn't disagree with that much, but I thought Saliba was just different class.
I have been tracking him, in a game, and that's why I guess, let's just be frank, George. There's a reason why the scouts operate in like groups of twos. One scout can, one person with one eye tracking the ball and another tracking the off field, what is going on. So I was paying a lot more attention to the overall performance of the midfield. But I will have to side with you. I mean, Saliba did not put a foot wrong. And any of these guys that try to attack him one-on-one, they're neutered. And between him and Gabriel Magalhaes, they were the rock of the defense. And the stats that I displayed earlier showed that their passing completion when they got the ball was in excess of 90%. I mean, they didn't give Manchester City a sniff, but
Erling Haaland,
yes,
had an expected goal of 0.00%.
What? And George, I didn't know that stat before.
He had an expected goal of zero.
He didn't have a sniff, George. I tell him.
He didn't even have a sniff of a sniff. And so that's who Saliba kept quiet.
Yes.
The most dangerous, deadly forward in the world of football got 0% XG. Now that's like you can say, oh well, somebody else was good and so but you've also got to think who you were up against. And when you're up against him, it's a bigger performance to do that. I mean, if he had kept, I don't know, bloody Gerard Bowen quiet, you think, well, it's good, he's not a bad player. But he's not kept Gerard Bowen quiet. He's kept fucking Erling Haaland quiet.
Quite.
Tremendous performance. Never looked in trouble.
But why don't, I have my reasons, I have an answer, but why does who score? Thank you, who score. I love your graphics and all. Miss this.
Well, I've no idea. I really haven't.
And neither and so does many of our fans. And George, most of our fans go with the conventional wisdom, which is why we do this podcast. We try to at least see through the what they're selling us, which is a narrative, so that we can keep coming next week and lambasting players and building up players and the hidden agendas for some agents who have their friends in the media. That is what happens, people. Let's be clear about it. We have seen that game played over and over again. But I still can't understand why.
Just look at this now.
Yes.
Jorginho.
Yes.
6.4. Can you think of a single mistake he made all day?
The only thing he did was to make that bad tackle early in the half. And
that he had to do that because where the fuck was Ben White?
Right.
There was, Phil Foden was running into no man's land. There was
right. Well,
he had to fucking foul him.
Right, and a breakaway. Phil Foden was steaming at defense.
Exactly. So why did he have to do that? Mm-hmm. He had to do it. Because you can imagine if he'd let him go, you know, he couldn't let him go.
Right.
So why was somebody else not covering? Why was he forced into making that mistake so early on in the game? I mean, he's on a card from 10 minutes.
And he was like exemplary for the rest of the game.
Never even looked like making a foul or making a mistake or giving the ball away. He was coolness personified. I like saying things like that.
George, and then, of course, well, it's not apparent here, but, you know, these guys give Martinelli a 7.5. So he's the second highest, George. And it's, you know, he came on the second half. And this for Trossard in the second half. And, he scored the goal. And, you know, if you don't take a chance, you won't, you know, as they say, if you know, you will not.
You don't buy a raffle ticket.
If you don't buy a ticket, you won't win the lottery, right? But I don't know. I think we over.
I think he did make a difference, though.
Yes, yes, he was attacking.
Credit.
By the way, George, you're good. You know, parties down the bottom. You know, people don't. He's the one who did that long pass, lob pass all the way over.
Yeah. Do you seriously think he played that ball for that play? He played it to the edge of the box for Tomasako to take on his chest. No, he didn't. He tried to switch play to the other wing. That's what he tried. And he hit it about 40 yards in the wrong direction.
I triggered you.
Well, it's true. It's true. But everyone's going, oh, Thomas Partey, look at this. He changed the game with this pass. Yeah, he mishit a fucking ball and Tomasako happened to fucking make something of it. And then that Havertz got that wonderful fucking assist where he laid it off.
Yes.
But that said,
yes.
Once Tomasako's got on the end of it and the ball drops to Havertz, Havertz made the right decision and he put it in a perfect way for Martinelli to run onto it. Then we got a bit of luck. But if Havertz hasn't played the ball at the right way, in the right place, Martinelli doesn't get that chance to have a swipe at it. And I think the result, I think if it had been a draw, we couldn't have complained.
No, I was in fact at that point I was looking for a draw.
However, I think we did deserve it because we should have had 11 versus 10 for sure.
That is, I was going to mention that when you were talking about the yellow card for Jorginho. Kovacic, I looked at it and then I said, Christ, the second one was certainly a yellow, George, come on.
I mean, the first one was as near to red as you can get.
My apologies, sorry.
It should have been red. It should have been off for the first one.
The studs were all showing all the way.
Halfway up his fucking shin.
Mm-hmm.
But having not sent him off for that, the second one was, just
a yellow card of the day. I was like,
but I saw something on Twitter this morning that Michael Oliver flew out to Saudi Arabia and refereed a match, got paid a shitload of money off the Saudis to referee a match. And coincidentally, he didn't send anyway.
Somebody from the oil emirate.
The
whole thing is incestuous doing it, George, because all these guys, if they're not playing for a nice gig from one of these countries currently, they're playing for that gig when they stop refereeing.
Whatever.
Let me finish this. The whole thing is incestuous, and that is why you get these kind of decisions in the Premier League. We need to say it for what it is. Go ahead, my friend.
Well, regardless of a conspiracy theory, which may or may not be true, that he didn't send him off was unjust for Arsenal. And I think just on that alone, that tips the balance in our favour and we deserve to win the game because of that.
And we had And Kenny, we had 12 shots to their 4. Okay, we were the ones trying to win the game. They weren't. They could not break down our defense. For example, George, Darren Alvarez, apart from what did Darren Alvarez do apart from that chance? I mean, he might have been involved in the
what did
first
anybody
quarter.
do? What did anybody do? We stopped them playing. It's just we did, and we were all over them towards the end. We were the ones pushing for a result. You know,
Right.
Gary Neville was trying to say, "Oh, they'll play out to a draw here," and
Yes.
they weren't playing out. They might have been playing out for a draw, but we certainly weren't. So again, the sending off and the fact that we were the ones looking to win, I think 3 points well deserved.
Me too. George, the table is looking better, George. We can't close out. The table is looking much better. I mean, I hate to see the neighbors from North London ahead of us. It could have easily been ahead of us by 3 points. Now
Well, the thing is, we only have to worry about Tottenham because the media are telling us to worry about them. You know, They're not a threat. They're not a threat. Liverpool and Manchester City are the threats.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. Well, you know how hard it is for a newly they're a newly built team, but let me just get this out. It's hard for a newly built team to get be able to sustain a run at the title. Let's just even just say that. I don't care how well they're.
Let's be honest. They could have dropped loads of points this season. They've had the rub of the green. I mean, particularly with the Liverpool game, they got gifted that. But
yes,
they won't get that amount of luck all season unless they give them that amount of luck, like they gave Leicester that amount of luck in the season they won it. Unless they decide that it's in the best interest of the Premier League for Tottenham to win it, they won't. Yeah. They won't come near.
No, I think Liverpool and Manchester City will have too much of a say in all of this. They're not. They're teams that are very dangerous and very strong. Well, George, so we have a 2-week break. On the 21st, we meet Chelsea away. Chelsea had a win finally. I know it's not the first win, but finally had a victory yesterday, or was it Saturday? Raheem Sterling was on the scoreboard, George, twice. I couldn't believe it.
Played well.
Played well. I mean, I was
thinking that he was responsible for all 4 goals.
Yeah. Oh, really? I only saw the highlights.
Yeah, he either scored them or made them through good play and put them on a plate. He had a really good game.
Yeah, so you think? Well, it's too early to worry about them. I mean, they don't going on international duty. People could probably get hurt, change the composition of the team. But we'll be on a break, so people, you have more chances to take a look at our podcast. Share with your friends. This is not the usual point of view. George, I tend to think that we don't say the same old. So if you're a fan who avoids the same old, tune into me and George. Anything else from you, George?
No. I'll see you after the break.
Like, share, and comment, and of course we'll be posted on both our blogs. Yours more than mine, of course. But that's how it is. I like it that way. I hope you like it that way. People, come on, give us a like and a share, and comment over the next 2 weeks. We love that. Bye, George.
Bye now.
All righty. Bye, my friend.